I was never frightened of anything in life until I started drinking too heavily. And then I became feeble in the mind, I think. You had a very strong position, work-wise. I was a policeman in central London, and I knew the alcohol was giving me a few issues with anxiety, but it never spilled into the workplace, thankfully. And a lot of my problem was this: I used to get panic attacks at very strange times, never on duty, but it seemed to catch up with me very suddenly, panic attacks. I remember the first one I ever had. I'll never forget it because I used to have this little black music thing. I used to put them on the headphones. I travelled from Epping into Oxford Circus to work. So I used to work in Savile Row, the police station there. And it was around the time of Riverdance, about 1994, I think. And this pod thing didn't work very well. I walked into the sea with it in my pocket once, and must have got a little bit damaged, obviously. But I had this one song still playing on it. It was a Riverdance song. I can't remember what it was, but it was quite an upbeat song. I used to play that all the time. I couldn't bother getting a new one, really. I used to have a little book or something to read, because it's about an hour's journey. I remember the first time, it was around about the time there's a few IRA, terrorist alerts and that sort of thing. And this day, I felt really quite trapped on the underground system. I don't know why, because I used to travel in about 1 o'clock lunchtime. It was pretty quiet from Epping, but as you got more into London, train could then go underground. And I started to really sweat, and I wondered what was wrong with me. I sort of felt quite detached from everything on the train. And I thought, well, I've got to get off this train, but I'm going to be late for work, you know, I'm late. So I got off the train, it was Leytonstone somewhere, might have been further in, and I had a bit of a breather. I stood at the back wall on the underground station. I've got to get back on the next train. I'll be late for work, you know. I got back in there again, then I got stuck in the tunnel, and you know, they used to hear this whoosh, whoosh of the trains go by. I started to feel really, really unwell. I started shaky, really. And I got in to Oxford Circus, and I was quite taken aback at how dizzy I felt. Now, I'd had a fair bit to drink that week, but not anything crazy. And I went in to work, got changed my uniform, and I did about 4 hours. And I said to the governor, I'd like sort of 4 hours time off. I've got a bit of a do-on. Time off was quite flexible, put up half a day's annual leave in or something. And I still didn't feel right. And I felt everyone was looking at me. I thought, what's going on here? And I realised then I had this sort of panic attack in the underground. And I went for a few drinks after that, and I felt better. I didn't think much of it at that particular time in that particular day, but I did muse over a bit and thought, I wonder what happened to me. Anyway, a few weeks later, the same thing happened again. I had the same music on, and the music had nothing to do with it, but I just remember this particular song was the only one I had left on this little iPad thing, or whatever it was, iPod thing. And the same thing happened again, and I felt this urge to get out of the train. So I was standing up and sitting down, standing up, sitting down. I didn't know where to put myself. It wasn't particularly busy. People were just looking at me thinking, he's a bit of a weird geezer. And I started to get paranoid by all of this. I went to work, did the same thing, managed to get through the week. And as time went by, these panic attacks became more often and more strange situations. I'd go into a large supermarket, any of them, as the saying, because Tesco, there's thousands, isn't there? And I'd feel really dizzy and out of place. I'd look at somewhere I could sort of lean against, maybe one of the pillars, or maybe there's the odd seat in a supermarket, or I could lean against the fruit and vegetables. It's a very bizarre feeling of being suddenly not well, but you can't put your finger on it. And my mind's racing, I started to sweat, and I started to feel as if everyone was like staring at me. And I had to go outside normally and try and catch my breath a little bit. And then I would drive to another shop, a corner shop or something, and get what I needed, which is probably twice as expensive, and took twice as long to get it. And it started to have this impact on my life where I couldn't actually live properly with the panic attacks. And then I settled down a little bit. It wasn't every day. And I decided we'd go on holiday, and I had this real urge to get out of the aeroplane. I didn't do anything, but in my mind it was like, I've got to get out of this aeroplane. So I put any flights on hold after that. And then we decided we'd still go on holiday, but we'd drive down to Northern Italy. We went down there a few times, but I remember all the time, especially going over the Dartford crossing, whenever I used to go over a bridge, I used to really panic if I was driving. And I was panicking more, in fact, when I was in the passenger seat, because I looked over the side. And I got these terrible feelings of impending doom, and the anxiety was becoming acute at times, to the point where, someone couldn't even go to work and have to take more time off and this sort of thing. Not necessarily just annual leave, so I had less annual leave, had more of the anxiety with that, and then it became more regular, this panic thing. When I was driving on a motorway, I started to shake and I started to sweat, because I used to come up north from London, and it's about a 6-hour drive, mostly motorways, isn't it? And I said, I'm going to have to pull over. I can't cope with the straight road. And I used to divert lots of times on the minor roads, which took twice as long again, caused arguments and all this sort of thing. I knew I wasn't right. I went to see the doctor, and even got to see the doctor with anxiety. Oh, you must cut down the booze and this, that, and the other. Might have something to do with it. Did my blood pressure, all this sort of thing. And I said, I'm having these terrible panic attacks. And they sort of dismissed the idea and said, well, there must be something wrong. You're stressed. And I said, I'm not particularly stressed by anything, to be honest. I just don't feel well at certain times. And I pinpointed myself down to the booze. And she said, oh, no, it can't be that way. You're not drinking that much. And I explained I was drinking a fair bit. We never tell the doctors the real truth, do we? And that happened for the rest of my life, until I had these spells off the booze. And when I was on the booze, the next day, I realised I was withdrawal, you see. And the withdrawal was causing the anxiety, and the anxiety would cause me to drink more, and it's a vicious cycle. But when you start to feel this, you're sort of displaced a little bit. You start to worry about going into shops. You start to worry about driving on roads. It has a massive impact on your life, alcohol. The anxiety side of it for me was acute, to the point that I stopped going to any social events. I was struggling a bit even getting to work, really. Once I retired, it got even worse, because I couldn't even visit my family. I was saying, I need a drink for everything. And you find that you need a drink to do anything. And in the end, I couldn't even get out of bed without a drink. And that was further down the line, obviously. But the early warning signs are there for a lot of people. Feel a bit panicky, feel a bit out of place, not comfortable in social situations where you were confident in the past. And your world will cave in on you very quickly. So that panic attack I had that day when I was listening to that Riverdance song on the Underground, I'll never forget it. Because I've got a pretty good memory. And I just thought, this is not right. I didn't have any seizures or any collapses or anything like that. I just didn't feel right. And I was wandering around these crowds in Oxford Circus Underground thinking, which way should I go? I'd lost my balance in a way. And the balance was in my brain more than anything. And my mind was shot with it. It really does fuck you up, to be fair. Alcohol. Especially in the mind. It did with me. I'm a bit of a massive overthinker. I worry too much. And it becomes very acute the more you drink. And it became even worse than that when I had these stop-start periods, when I would be off for a year, off the booze for a year, then start again, so I thought I had control of it. The anxiety would just rebound back, bang, straight away. And I would have a couple of hours of mellow time when I had a few drinks. The next day, wow, it was so bad. The hangovers then went into withdrawal. There was no hangover period, it was just drinking, bang into withdrawal. The shakes, the sweats, and I'd be able to sleep. Probably the no eating thing was a big thing for me. And I was reaching for a drink earlier and earlier in the day. And to be fair, I'm lucky to be alive. And it nearly killed me. As simple as that. And it killed a lot of people, I know. It kills millions of people every year. But as I've said before, it's still available everywhere, isn't it? But if you feel any of these things coming on, certainly go and see a doctor. Get in touch with me. I do one-to-one mentoring as well, which is proving highly successful. There's a link in the description of this video to that. My number's in there as well. If you want to contact me, do so. Just drop me a text, I'll get back to you. I've got an ebook out as well. But remember, there's nothing good about drinking. Nothing good, nothing positive about alcohol. It's all downhill. But to me, the panic attacks are so bloody scary. Keep well, folks. Speak soon.